Helen Marlene Major, née Oakes, widely recognized by her middle name and later by her maiden name, was a tragic figure in American history, brutally murdered by her estranged spouse, William Alexander Major, in 1980. Following her untimely demise, a portion of her skull was discovered near their residence, yet it remained unidentified until 2001, when mitochondrial DNA testing confirmed the remains' identity. Oakes had been involved in an affair with Glenn St. Hilaire, a mutual acquaintance of both her and her husband, who had briefly worked for Bill Major. Their paths crossed when St. Hilaire's truck broke down while traveling from Ohio to Texas, leading him to reside in a mobile home on the couple's property. During this period, Oakes and St. Hilaire developed a close bond, with Bill Major allegedly encouraging their relationship under suspicious circumstances. Married for 9 years, Bill Major was also rumored to be entangled with another woman. The couple shared 2 children, Donald and Lalana. In her diary, Marlene expressed her anguish. "I know what I saw. I told him not to touch me ever again, and if he touches Donald, I'll kill him. I could be the biggest whore to walk the streets of Verona, and no judge would dare to give him custody of my kids before me." Oakes documented her harrowing experiences, revealing that she had witnessed her husband sexually assaulting their son, Donald. Bill Major had a prior conviction for molesting 2 boys in 1975. In light of these horrors, Oakes devised a plan to escape with her children from the toxic environment. Reports indicate that Major had threatened to kill Oakes if she attempted to leave him, detailing the lengths he would go to ensure her body would remain unrecognizable. In a poignant act of foresight, Oakes entrusted her diaries to St. Hilaire, hoping to preserve her truth. In addition, she had conveyed that Major was willing to sign the divorce documents on the condition that the allegations of their son's mistreatment remained confidential. Oakes noted that should he reconsider, she would inform her mother-in-law. She also confided in her sister regarding her intentions to divorce and the abuse inflicted by Major upon Donald. On October 11, 1980, a dispute erupted between Oakes and Major, prompting St. Hilaire to leave the premises to cool off. Upon his return around midnight, he discovered the home in disarray. Major had taken the 2 children to a neighbor's house, but falsely claimed to St. Hilaire that Oakes had deserted them and abducted the children. He entrusted several firearms to another neighbor and expressed a desire to return to his home state of Rhode Island. St. Hilaire uncovered Major's deceit 2 days later, realizing that Oakes would never have willingly abandoned her children, and promptly alerted the authorities. There was no indication that Oakes had taken anything with her aside from her vehicle, which is now believed to have been discarded in the Ohio River. Her driver's license, however, remained at the residence. Major misled Donald and Lalana, asserting that their mother had forsaken them due to her involvement with drugs, alcohol, and prostitution. Initially, authorities found the notion that Oakes had left due to marital dissatisfaction somewhat credible. Yet their search of the property yielded no results. They did acknowledge the motives outlined in her diary as potential reasons for her disappearance, but no evidence of foul play was discovered within the couple's trailer. The diary itself was deemed insufficient to warrant a murder charge. Her dental records were routinely submitted to relevant agencies whenever a woman's body matching her description was located. Both St. Hilaire and Major denied any involvement in Oakes' disappearance when questioned by the police. Detectives requested that Major undergo a polygraph examination, but he declined and relocated to Pawtucket, Rhode Island, with his son and daughter. During his employment, he frequently brought one of the children along, subjecting them to repeated abuse. On November 29, 1981, a hunter stumbled upon a partial skull, devoid of teeth, approximately a mile from the Major residence. However, it would take years before this grim discovery was identified. The cause of death was established as multiple gunshot wounds, and through forensic examination, the victim was identified as a white female, roughly 30 years of age. Signs of dismemberment were also present. At that time, dental records were the primary method for identifying skeletal remains, yet the absence of teeth rendered the skull unidentifiable, despite initial conjecture linking it to Marlene Oaks. Ultimately, traditional nuclear DNA testing was deemed unfeasible due to the advanced deterioration of the bone. In 1981, Major entered into a second marriage. His new wife reported the sexual and physical abuse to the authorities in 1984, prompted by his children revealing that he had threatened to kill one sibling if the other reported him. Shortly after being confronted, he menaced Lalana at gunpoint, insisting she keep her mouth shut. He was apprehended and convicted in 1985, serving 11 years of a 15-year sentence. Following his conviction, Donald and Lalana took refuge with their maternal grandmother, Oaks's mother. Upon his release in 1996, Major was poised to face further charges from Kentucky officials. However, due to the statute of limitations and a lack of sufficient evidence, no further legal action could be pursued. It was confirmed that 2 additional boys had been sexually assaulted by Bill Major. Oaks's mother immediately suspected him in connection with her daughter's disappearance. After gaining custody, she confided in Lalana, expressing her belief that Oaks had been deceased since her vanishing. Eventually, Lalana confronted her father, demanding to know the whereabouts of Oaks's remains, assuring him that she would refrain from legal action if her mother could receive a proper burial. His chilling response was, "If you think I'm going to tell you where your mother is buried, you're crazy." In a remarkable display of determination, she embarked on an independent quest for knowledge, immersing herself in the world of true crime documentaries. At the age of 20, she was granted access to the Oaks case files by the Boone County Police, which allowed her to begin interviewing witnesses. Despite her diligent efforts to uncover additional remains, her search proved fruitless. In 2001, Lalana took a significant step by submitting DNA for a mitochondrial test, aiming to compare it with that of an unidentified skull. Although this type of DNA was more accessible, it offered less precise genetic information. Initially, the county hesitated to fund the nearly $20,000 test, but ultimately reversed their decision, spurred by Oaks's sister's willingness to forfeit her retirement savings for the cause. The results confirmed Lalana's maternal connection to the individual to whom the skull belonged. In a troubling turn of events, Major's father revealed to authorities that his son had confessed to the murder while incarcerated, a revelation that left him appalled. However, this admission alone lacked sufficient evidence, as the prison did not record inmate phone calls, and there was considerable animosity between father and son. In March 2000, Major's father permitted police to monitor his phone call with Major, during which Major admitted his guilt. This led to his swift arrest. He later confessed to the police, expressing a chilling lack of remorse. Major's defense team argued that a stroke he suffered in 1995 had rendered him delusional. He was formally charged in July 2001, and after a brief jury deliberation of just 43 minutes, he was found guilty on July 28, 2003. He received a life sentence. However, this conviction was overturned on appeal, leading to a retrial, where he was once again convicted and sentenced to the same fate. Kiplyn Davis, born on July 1, 1979, was a radiant young girl with a bright future ahead, deeply loved by her family and friends. At the tender age of 15, she was a sophomore at Spanish Fork High School in Spanish Fork, Utah, where her vivacious spirit and commitment to her studies made her a beloved figure. On the morning of May 2, 1995, following a disagreement with her parents, Kiplyn arrived at school early, prepared to engage in her usual academic pursuits. Throughout the morning, she actively participated in her classes, enjoying the company of her peers until lunchtime. The last sighting of her was in the bustling school cafeteria, surrounded by friends and classmates. However, her absence during the fourth and fifth periods quickly raised alarms. A close friend initially reported having spoken with her during this time, but this account later shifted, adding an element of uncertainty to the unfolding mystery. As the school day concluded, Kiplyn had not returned home, leaving her items, including her purse, makeup, a dental retainer, and textbooks, securely locked in her school locker. As night fell, her family's worry intensified. She had informed her friends that she would not be participating in planned evening activities and had even hinted at thoughts of running away. These remarks became pivotal for investigators, suggesting deeper issues that may have played a role in her disappearance. When Kiplyn did not arrive home at her usual hour, her family promptly reported her missing, igniting a comprehensive search that involved law enforcement agencies. Within 2 months, the case garnered the attention of the FBI, who began to consider it a potential kidnapping. This shift to federal involvement highlighted the gravity of the situation, as investigators diligently sought to unravel the mystery of Kiplyn's last known whereabouts. Despite extensive inquiries involving friends, classmates, and family, the enigma surrounding her fate only deepened. As the months unfolded without any trace of Kiplyn or leads regarding her fate, law enforcement grew increasingly concerned that foul play was involved in her vanishing. Although she had quarreled with her parents on the day she disappeared and had made comments about wanting to escape, her family steadfastly believed that her life had been cruelly taken from her. In the aftermath of her disappearance, a flurry of rumors swept through the community, with various theories suggesting possible locations for her remains. Speculations ranged from the depths of a nearby canyon to the shadows of a train tunnel beneath a building or at numerous other sites scattered throughout Spanish Fork. After enduring 4 agonizing years of uncertainty, Kiplyn's family decided to commemorate her life with a memorial service, recognizing the deep void her absence had created in their lives. In a heartfelt tribute, they established a marker in her honor at the Spanish Fork City Cemetery, providing a sacred space for friends and family to gather, reflect, and grieve. In 2003, U.S. Attorney Paul Warner took decisive action to reinvigorate the investigation into Kiplyn Davis's disappearance and possible death. This renewed inquiry focused on several of Kiplyn's classmates, who were considered either suspects or individuals believed to possess vital information about her fate. Among those under scrutiny were Timmy Brent Olson, Christopher Neil Jepson, Rucker Lyon, Gary Blackmore, and Scott Brunson. This intensified focus on specific individuals represented a crucial turning point in the investigation, aimed at uncovering the truth behind Kiplyn's heartbreaking story. Eventually, Timmy Brent Olson and Rucker Lyon faced charges in connection with Kiplyn's murder, as mounting evidence and testimonies began to implicate them. Olson quickly became a person of interest shortly after Kiplyn's disappearance, and during a series of interviews with law enforcement, he provided conflicting accounts of his last encounter with her, further complicating the timeline leading up to her tragic vanishing. His contradictory accounts raised significant concerns, compelling investigators to probe further into his history and actions on the day of her disappearance. Testimonies from witnesses proved instrumental in guiding the investigation. Numerous individuals asserted that Olson had admitted to assaulting and murdering Kiplyn. These claims suggested he had concealed her remains in a canyon adjacent to the Spanish Fork River. Such serious allegations cast a troubling shadow over Olson's character and intensified suspicions regarding his role in Kiplyn's case. The accusations against him were not limited to this incident. During the inquiry, at least 4 women recounted instances of aggressive behavior or offenses committed by Olson, indicating a disturbing trend of misconduct. On May 6, 2009, a notable turn of events unfolded when Utah state prosecutors decided to drop the murder charges against Christopher Neil Jepson, choosing not to seek the death penalty. Instead, Jepson entered a no-contest plea to charges of obstruction, ultimately signing an affidavit claiming ignorance of the details surrounding Kiplyn's disappearance. In contrast, Rucker Lyon opted for a different route, pleading guilty to a single count of perjury before a grand jury. His sentence was established at 4 years in prison, contributing to the growing roster of individuals associated with the case who faced repercussions for their actions during the investigation. Gary Blackmore and Scott Brunson also encountered legal difficulties, having been convicted of lying to a grand jury, with their sentences dependent on their willingness to testify against Olson. As the legal proceedings unfolded, a crucial moment arrived on June 1, 2009, when a judge addressed a motion to dismiss the charges against Timmy Brent Olson. The judge opted to postpone any ruling on the motion, emphasizing the necessity to thoroughly examine all evidence submitted by the prosecutors. The court remained intent on determining whether there existed adequate evidence to confirm Kiplyn's tragic passing, suggesting that an evidentiary hearing might be convened to delve deeper into this pivotal matter. On February 11, 2011, Olson ultimately entered a guilty plea, resulting in a 15-year incarceration. In a disconcerting turn of events, he alleged that he had witnessed another person strike Kiplyn with a rock and confessed to aiding in the relocation of her body thereafter. Nevertheless, he refrained from revealing the identity of this individual or the whereabouts of Kiplyn's remains. Although eligible for parole in 2021, Olson's unwillingness to assist authorities in locating Kiplyn's body led to the denial of his parole. Timmy Brent Olson is presently expected to complete his full sentence, with a release date projected for February 2026. Stephen Corrigan, an Irishman, was discovered in a state of partial skeletal remains in Rathmines, Dublin, on the 9th of April, 2020. His remains were located in a picturesque, tree-lined communal area adjacent to the Lissenfield development, situated off Lower Rathmines Road. Notably, there were no garments found with the remains, nor was there any indication of an attempt to inter them. A forensic anthropologist, alongside members of the Garda Technical Bureau, meticulously examined both the remains and the surrounding site. Subsequently, the remains were transported to the Dublin City Mortuary for further forensic analysis. A post-mortem examination conducted on the 21st of April 2020 revealed no evidence suggesting homicide. Due to the partial nature of the remains, a conclusive cause of death could not be established. DNA testing was undertaken and compared with records of missing persons. However, as of the 27th of April, 2020, no matches were found. The remains were to be retained at the Dublin City Mortuary until an identification could be made. On the 22nd of June, 2020, a spokesperson for the Garda Press announced that the remains had been successfully identified and efforts were underway to reach out to family members. On the 7th of July, 2020, it was confirmed that the remains belonged to Stephen Corrigan, who had been missing since November 2011. Following a nationwide appeal to locate his family, Finders International adeptly traced living relatives. Father Brendan Corrigan, a first cousin of Stephen's mother, was located in County Westmeath. Although he had previously met Stephen's grandfather, George, he had never had the opportunity to meet Stephen himself. Born in 1963 to a single mother, Hannah or Anna Corrigan, Stephen's family history is marked by loss. Hannah passed away in 2015 at the age of 81, and Stephen's only sibling, Edward, who was 6 years his junior, died in 2016 at the age of 46. Hannah, born in 1934, was the only child of George Corrigan and Johanna Newman, who were married in Dublin in 1932. George Corrigan, the esteemed grandfather of Stephen, was one of 12 siblings, including John, Mary, Sarah, Thomas, Joseph, Anne, Nora, Nicholas, Michael, Hubert, and Francis. Francis Corrigan, Stephen's granduncle, united in matrimony with Kathleen O'Brien, and together they welcomed 5 children, all of whom are cousins to Stephen's mother. Among these offspring is Brendan, who pursued his studies at Maynooth and now serves as the parish priest in Kilbeggan. Brendan, a first cousin to Stephen's mother, Hannah, holds the distinction of being Stephen's first cousin once removed. Hayley Seeger from Finders International in Dublin remarked, "The relatives we have uncovered thus far predominantly belong to Stephen's maternal grandfather's lineage. The Corrigan family tree is remarkably expansive. It is also known that a significant number of Stephen's grandfather's family members emigrated to the UK, with both George and his granduncle, Michael Corrigan, employed at Ford in Dagenham. Stephen Corrigan was born on June 8, 1963, and was reported missing on November 22, 2011. At the time of his disappearance, he resided in the Cork Street area of Dublin. He had been a patient at the Weir Home on Cork Street, a facility providing nursing and psychiatric care for men. Residents had the freedom to come and go, and on the day he vanished, he did not return. Stephen struggled with mental health challenges, often retreating from society. During these periods, he was known to seek refuge on the streets surrounding St. Anne's Park, Palmerston Park, Mulhudart, and Glasnevin. His mother maintained communication with the Gardaí and provided a blood sample for identification purposes. Crime Call made 3 appeals for information regarding his whereabouts. His remains were ultimately identified through DNA comparison with the blood sample submitted by his mother, who had sadly passed away before his remains were discovered, as had his only other known blood relative. The Gardaí believe he may have died shortly after his last sighting. In July 2020, they appealed for any additional relatives or individuals with information about his family to reach out to Rathmines Garda Station. In July 1980, a chilling discovery was made in a field in Markham, Ontario, Canada, where the remains of an unidentified man were unearthed. This unfortunate individual, later referred to as Markham Doe, remained nameless for decades until advancements in DNA technology finally shed light on his identity. The grim find occurred along the 11th concession, nestled between 14th Avenue and Steeles Avenue, and was stumbled upon by a resident. Initially, investigators faced a daunting challenge, armed with scant information. It was established that the remains belonged to a Caucasian male, estimated to be between 25 and 40 years of age. Due to the severely decomposed state of the body, identifying the man proved impossible, and thus he was designated as Markham Doe. Standing at approximately 5 feet 6 inches and weighing between 100 to 120 pounds, he had dark brown hair of medium length. The inquiry into his identity was spearheaded by the York Regional Police, and his remains were laid to rest at Mount Pleasant Cemetery. However, in 2007, the York Regional Police Cold Case Unit undertook an exhumation to facilitate a facial reconstruction and collect skeletal evidence for DNA analysis. A year later, a traditional DNA profile was created and submitted to the National DNA Database, yet it yielded no matches. In June 2022, a collaboration between the York Regional Police and Othram led to a breakthrough. Forensic evidence was sent to Othram's laboratory, where scientists successfully extracted viable DNA from Markham Doe. Utilizing forensic-grade genome sequencing, they constructed a detailed DNA profile, which was then returned to investigators, paving the way for a forensic genetic genealogy search that unveiled promising new leads in this long-standing mystery. The investigation, spurred by new leads, unveiled potential relatives of Markham Doe. On April 3, 2023, He was revealed to be 26-year-old William Joseph Pennell from Toronto, Ontario, a man who had never been reported missing throughout the years. In November 2024, detectives shared the findings of their extensive inquiry. It was uncovered that William had a history of incarceration due to various criminal activities, including armed robbery, which he committed while on parole. His parole violation led to his return to Collins Bay Institution in Kingston, where he confided in his case officers about the involvement of two accomplices in the armed robbery of a Becker's store in Brampton. Although he acknowledged his participation in the crime, he refrained from naming his partners in crime, citing fears for his safety. William was convicted for the Becker's robbery in April 1980, and just 2 months later, he orchestrated an escape from prison, with records of this incident mysteriously missing. It was reported that he confided in a friend about his intentions to flee to South America, marking his last known communication before the discovery of the unidentified remains a month later. After more than 40 years, Markham Doe has finally been recognized.